Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. As a part of this show, I typically have a guest on to help me to make sense of something that is happening in the world of collectibles, and we are indeed going to have a guest on tonight's show. And there's a few other things that we will talk about, one of which is a stolen collection. So I definitely want to encourage people to stay tuned for that. A little bit of a PSA, if you will, a little bit of be on the alert in the event of type of thing that we'll do a little bit later in the show. What happened? The topic that we are going to discuss here in just a moment was actually prompted by the Q&A that we did. I think it was last week. I can't remember if it was Doug or if it was Milt, but one of them sent me a message when I opened things up and said, hey, what topics do you want to see covered? One of them suggested the Comic Book Community Awards, and specifically some of the controversy that is out there regarding these awards, which I have been nominated for. I've actually been nominated in 5 of the 10, now 11 categories. And I'm honestly really proud of the fact that people thought enough to put my name forward for that many categories. And I don't know if I'll win anything. I don't know if I'll win anything, but it's one of those things where you're like, it's the thought that counts. It is indeed the thought that counts. But we are going to dig into that topic here in just a moment. If you are watching this live stream live, or if you're watching it and listening to it on playback and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to do that. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that comes out from the channel. All you have to do is to tap the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and then YouTube will do the rest. And the other thing I want to make mention of is that this live stream will be playing back on the podcast. Next week's podcast will feature this show, so you can take some Regie on the go and download the episode on your favorite podcasting platforms. As I always do with this show, one of the first things that we are going to do is to go to the chat to see what books you all may have picked up at your LCS earlier today. And if you read something that was awesome that we should put on the top of our stacks, I definitely want to know what those books are. And if you didn't make it to the LCS, but you still bought some comics, maybe you bought some stuff online, that still counts. Let me know what it is that you guys may have picked up. First comment I see here is from Harvey. He says, no LCS today, but he's looking to pick up the newest Foxtrot collection. So he is up in Canada, and I'm sure that Harvey's going to make some magic happen and get to his LCS. I saw another name here. That I have not seen in a while. Chris B, it is good to see you, brother. He says, good to finally make a live one. Even though I'm at work, I'll be popping in and out of the chat. Chris, do not get fired, okay? Do not get fired on your day off. No, don't get fired at all. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Ken is saying he's hoping everyone is having a great week. I'll tell you, brother, I can't wait for this week to be over. I'm just telling you right now. So scrolling through some of the comments here, you guys are having a good little back and forth with one another. Joey is in here. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you. Looking for some comments here. Whoa, what is that? Rush Diehard, my Canadian brother. 19 copies of Moon Knight #3 pre-order. That series is actually pretty good. I have not read issue #3, but issue #1 and 2 were pretty good. I think 1 was better than 2, if memory serves. I have not read 3, but I will try to check it out. Ken is saying he got Space Ghost #1 from Rage, and a Walmart 7-pack for $10. That's the new thing. That's the new thing that I'm hearing about. I can't remember who first alerted me to it. It could have been Ken. Basically, what we're getting is 2 Walmart 3-packs bound together with another comic in the middle. That's how they're getting to this 7-pack for $10. And this is something that, again, somebody alerted me to. I want to say, like, over the weekend, I first started hearing rumors of this. I have yet to see one. So, Ken, I know you're on the Instagram, brother. If you have a photo of that, shoot it over to me. I'd like to be able to take a look at that. Here we go. Mendoza picked up Power Pack 1 through 3 and US Agent 1 through 3 today. Is the Power Pack the original Power Pack, or is there a new one out? Is there a new Power Pack? Or is that the one from I think from the 80s? Either way, congrats. I'm just curious what it is that you may have picked up. My man Milt is in here. He said great books he picked up includes Stillwater, which I absolutely love. Stillwater, Once and Future, last issue of Bunny Mask. What is that? Issue 6? I read issue 1. I haven't read anything else since issue 1, but 1 was pretty good. And Norse Mythology, says my man Milt. Good stuff, brother. Xavier picked up Something is Killing the Children, Department of Truth, and all the stray dogs he can carry. Well done. Well done, brother. Well done. There you go. There we go. There, Mendoza's closing the loop on it. Thank you. She is talking about the original Power Pack. What's funny is that I was in the garage earlier today doing a little bit of some sorting with the 100K collection, and hoisted to the top of my red shelves the bin full of Power Pack. It's like it's a large portion of the run. I don't know if it's every book. I haven't sorted through it, but it's a lot of Power Pack. Trust me when I tell you. David, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you, my friend. Let me see. Scrolling through. I try, brother. I try. Scrolling through the comments. Dark Blood number 3 came, a man. Dark Blood 1 and 2 were incredible. I was going back and forth with the artist a couple of days ago, like over the weekend, going back and forth with the artist, telling him how much I enjoyed that series. It is incredibly well done. So my man Whitewell Comics is in the house. It's good to see you, brother. Scrolling through the comments, it doesn't look like a lot of people picked up stuff today. Ooh, this one. John Jenkins, Barbaric from Vault Comics. The folks over at Skybound, I don't know the relationship with Vault Comics. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know the relationship, but they sent me a bundle, 2 boxes of comics, and in one of them was Barbaric issue number 2. It is a black and white comic. I'm not big on black and white comics. Like, that's why I've never read Walking Dead. I read Barbaric issue number 2. It is good. It is good. It is black and white. It is not for children. Let me tell you that right now. It's like old school, like Thor type of stuff, right? But they speak in modern language. And one of my big challenges with like certain comics is that the old style of writing, I just can't get on board with it. And Thor is one of those comics that readily comes to mind. But Barbaric from Vault Comics, worth the read. I have not read issue number 1, but I am going to check it out. So what is that? Matt says he opened up a 7-pack from Walmart last summer. Those aren't new. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I thought that those were completely new, because that question that someone asked me was, is this them bleeding down the inventory that was left over from the stuff that they did with Walmart Gate or a variant gate? So now I'm hearing that this Walmart thing potentially is not a new thing. So thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate that. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Matt says he only picked up 2 books on the pull list. Just forget what the 2 were. And then Xavier right after. Oh my goodness. The first to comment from Matt Woods, he forgets which 2, and then Xavier with the zinger. Matt, you know it's a Conan. You know it's a Conan in there, brother. Let me see. Mass, it is good to see you. I am doing well. Welcome to the live stream. We are happy to have you. Finally finished reading Spider-Man's Shadow Run, keeping up with the Max Carnage Semonite series. Good stuff. Scrolling through. Okay, so you guys may have noticed that there is a statue in the background. Shout out to all the subscribers that picked that up for me. I broke him out of his box and placed him upon his perch. So I wanted to acknowledge Spidey back there. What did this say? 2021. How you doing, brother? He picked up a new PC book, Giant Size Chillers, issue number 1, CGC 8.5, First Lilith, as well as Dark Blood 3, Eat the Rich 2, Kingspawn 2, Radiant Black, and The Death of Doctor Strange. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. You solid books, brother. Scrolling through. All right. Tina's like, nah, it is a nice statue. It is indeed a nice statue. I almost couldn't remember how to put he's got all these things that are built into that stand on the bottom. I almost couldn't put the pieces back together. I forgot how all the things went together. So he's been in a box for so long, but now he is out, he is breathing air, and he is ready. So to that point, we are actually going to get to our very first topic of the day. And that topic again was inspired. It was either Milt again or Doug that prompted me to talk about the Comic Book Community Awards. And at the time of last week's Comics Today show, I did not want to tackle that topic. I wanted to have a guest on to talk about it. And today gave me the opportunity with this show to invite our guest on. And so we're going to take this thing. Oh, and I think we're okay. Let me go ahead and bring my man Brian on. Brian, it is good to see you.
Great to be here, Reggie. Thanks very much for having me.
So, Brian, what is the name of your dog, my friend?
The baby Yoda?
Your barking dog.
Oh, the dog. I have two. I have Miko and Mushu.
Okay, Miko and Mushu. Okay, I saw your video on Instagram where you were like, I got to keep this guy quiet during the live stream. So I got to chuckle out of that because dogs do make an appearance occasionally on the show.
Yeah, I don't want to upstage, Doug and his dog. So I'm trying to keep him quiet.
Bentley cannot be upstage. He's a proper gentleman. But Brian, I want to welcome you to the show. And I want to start out with a super basic question. Like, give us like the 20-second who you are and what is your relationship to comics and comic collecting. Like, how long have you been a collector? Like, set this stuff up for me before we get to the awards and all that stuff.
Sure. I started collecting as a teenager in the 80s, and I collected probably religiously for about 7 or 8 years, and then life happened and married, kids, and stopped collecting for probably 25 years. Mm-hmm. And just recently got, back into it in really like 2019, started, going back to the LCS and collecting again. But I still had, 4 or 5 long boxes of the books I collected, from the 80s. I've had them always, saved them, but just hadn't done much with them in a long time.
Yeah, and the story that you just outlined there is a story that is probably very familiar to many a person that is in the live stream right now, because we have all walked that path of starting when we're young, getting away from it for a long period of time, and then eventually making our way back. But most recently, you have, yes, returned to the hobby of comic book collecting, but you also started something called the Comic Book Community Awards. And the aim of the awards, and I want to read this because I want to get it right. The aim of the awards is to recognize the great community of creators from YouTube and Instagram who regularly produce entertaining, thought-provoking, and slab-worthy comic book content. What is it, Brian, that prompted you to actually start some awards for the comic book community?
So like I said, I got back into comics in 2019. I probably didn't start watching comic book content on YouTube probably until last year, 2020. And I started watching, some videos. I found your channel. I found a number of other channels. And then just this year, I started my own channel. And what I started to find was it's a great community. It's AOKs, people being very friendly to one another, meeting in real life. And so it's a very tight-knit, friendly community. And I've been involved in other types of niche communities. I ran a personal finance blog for about 7 years. And that community is very similar to the comic book community, although it's a different, subject, but they are, very friendly and very helpful towards one another and producing a wide variety of, resources and content. And so when I started to notice all of the creators on YouTube, I thought of the idea of doing the awards for the comic book community. Now, in the personal finance community, there's something very similar for bloggers and YouTubers that create personal finance content. So I kind of borrowed that idea and said we could do an award show here. But I did a little bit of homework first. I wanted to make sure I wasn't aware of anybody else doing an award. I have since have had some feedback that there was maybe an awards sometime in the past, but nothing currently active. And so when I'm watching content like your channel, your shows, whether it's your live streams or your pre-recorded content, it's amazing the amount of entertaining, helpful, thoughtful content that's being created. So I really wanted to just recognize all of the various channels, and everybody does things a little bit differently.
Yep.
Some people are heavy on specs, some people are heavy on unboxings, so there's a wide variety, and I just really wanted to be able to start to recognize, and I thought it would be a fun way to give back to the community. It was really the reason.
I think that helps the background of like who you are as a person, who you are as a collector, where you came from in terms of previous industry, and how you've taken some of the experiences and lessons and learnings from that industry and applied it to this hobby now that you have come back into the hobby, like so many other people that have come back during the pandemic, right? I mean, there has been a massive influx of people. So I want to thank you for breaking that down for us. But I want to be super transparent about stuff, right? You originally reached out to me back on June 24th. And I know that date because I went back and I listened to all the voice notes that we exchanged that day, which also happened to be my birthday.
Oh, okay.
I was sitting outside watching my kids play in the pool. You reached out to me and you were like, hey, you don't know me. I've been watching your content. Can you give me your thoughts on something? And we basically had a back and forth where you shared, here's what I want to do. Here's my thoughts. I gave you some of my thoughts. And I think my second voice note was like, I think this is an awesome idea. Like, I thought it was a good idea because so much of this community, to your point, is about the camaraderie, right? It is about lending a hand to other people. And what you're basically saying is, hey, let's celebrate those people that are creating content, putting it out there for people to be able to enjoy. And that's nothing more than what this community is about. And even the name is super clear about that, but in me giving you some feedback and you talking to me about what you want to do, I personally did not foresee some of the controversy and maybe backlash, if you want to call it that you recently encountered. Can you give people a feeling for why people have raised some concerns with the awards? Because there may be a lot of people that don't have awareness. So can you encapsulate that for us?
Sure. And I never thought that there would be a reaction, a negative reaction the way it was, or else I would have maybe taken a little bit more time to get things going. But so, I did reach out. You were one of the people that I reached out to. I reached out to several other to get their feedback. What do you think of this idea? And it was all positive. Nobody said, no, that's a terrible idea. Don't even think about it. So, the negative feedback has been really that there were some people that weren't aware of it, so they didn't have the opportunity to get votes in. And I admit that was probably that was certainly a mistake on my side. I could have reached out to more of the channels, but I was posting on Instagram and I was tagging people. But obviously, that doesn't mean they're looking at what I'm posting. So that was really the backlash from a negative perspective. It was, they just weren't aware of it. It wasn't on their radar. And then when they look, and it really didn't catch on until the finalists were announced. So there was 8 weeks of nomination. So one of the misconceptions was that they thought they were channels that I nominated myself.
Right.
It was based on votes.
Right.
So votes from the community and from fans of the channels. So that's how the finalists were determined. And I actually had a committee come together and look over those. So it just wasn't me looking at it. And so I guess the issue that people had with it was they weren't aware of it. And then they didn't like the channels that became the finalists, because some of those channels had, it was based on sub count. Well, they only have, 500 subs. How could they be nominated? And, my thought is, I don't really, it doesn't matter to me how many subs a channel has. I think it's how engaged are their audience. You know, you could have 500 subs, but if you've got 50% of your audience engaged, well, then you've got an active community. You know, you could have 10,000, and if you've only got, 10 people engaged, well, so then, you can see how, that can go. So that was the biggest, piece that people were complaining about.
That the circle
The
was maybe too small, the lack of awareness,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
how
That.
the and what's fascinating is that I thought it was the opposite. I thought people were upset that larger channels were actually nominated and not the smaller channels. And I'm hearing from you, it might have been the opposite. Like, how did this small channel get nominated versus some of the larger ones? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, it was. Well, it was. And when I look at it, and when I look at the finalist list, your channels included Gem Mint, Comic Tom, some of the bigger channels, Bueller, Comics with Bueller. So some of the bigger channels that I'm aware of, but I'm not aware of every single comic book channel on YouTube.
Right.
So I can only do my best in my outreach. And a lot of that outreach was, some direct messages on Instagram, and then tagging people on Instagram, and having, streams on my channel, and talking about it as much as I could. And so, yeah, I guess they felt my outreach wasn't wide enough, and so they felt slighted that they potentially didn't get nominated, or friends of theirs didn't get nominated.
But let's be super clear about this, and please correct me if I say anything wrong. You created the 10 categories, the 10 initial categories. You drove awareness of the fact that the categories were open, that were there, and that people could nominate. The community itself nominated channels, large and small. You didn't pick channels to go into the categories for people to vote on, correct?
Correct.
So
it was open-ended. It was fill in the blank.
right. So theoretically, to your point about engagement, a small channel with 500 subscribers that has a very actively engaged community around their channel could have, had a lot of engagement and shown up on the list. And I mean, because here's the thing, Jim Mint's channel is much, much larger than mine, right? And so theoretically, I should have never had 5 nominations when Jim didn't have 5 nominations, given the
Right.
size of our channels, right? And that is not a knock on Jim Mint in any way, shape, or form. It is me saying, hey, let's dig into some of the details, right? Let's look at some of this stuff from all the angles, just to make sure we have a little bit of transparency and we understand what's happening. But again, what you offered up, I think, was really helpful. But in response to some of the controversy that you've heard, you actually made a little bit of a pivot. Can you talk about that pivot that you made and why you decided to do that?
Sure. So I heard the feedback, I heard the criticism, and I wanted to adjust. And there was some people saying, well, maybe you should reopen the nominations, and come up with a new list of finalists. And I couldn't do that because that would not be fair. I had already made the announcements of the finalists, in each of the 10 categories. So that wouldn't be fair to those finalists who were announced, yourself included. So I said, okay, well, let me add an additional award, the People's Choice Award, and we'll open up nominations so that any of those channels that weren't aware of it, that are now aware of it, have the opportunity to vote for their own channel, for their favorite channel, or whatever it may be. Obviously, what's the saying? There's no such thing as bad press. So, people were talking about it negatively and positively. So the word was getting out. So I said, all right, we'll open up this other category, open up nominations, and anybody who, fell through the cracks now has an opportunity.
Because the great thing about it is that now those folks that weren't aware before are now aware. They now have an opportunity to speak to their audience about the awards, and then hopefully activate their audience to go vote for them to put forth their thing. And one thing that I will say is that even though you and I spoke about the possibility of you doing the awards back on June 24th, I saw the website. I gave you feedback on the website. I did not start driving any traffic until you made your announcements. I want to be super clear about that. Like, I didn't have some kind of secret advantage where I was rallying my own troops to vote for me. Again, I offer some of this stuff up in the spirit of transparency, but technically your 11th award, which is the People's Choice Award, that name could apply to all of them because they're all People's Choice Awards, right? Because
yeah, very true. Yeah,
right.
I didn't really, I thought of, since we're reopening nominations, that it would really be, and the fact that there was some negativity towards it. I said the People's Choice sounds like a good award to hopefully help some of those people that were having, difficulty with how things, went. That might help smooth things over.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I just, when I was writing that down, like People's Choice Awards, I'm like, well, wait a minute, they're all People's Choice, So I think you did the right thing. But let me ask you this: why didn't you just say no? Why didn't you just say, you know what? I gave you 8 weeks to vote. I tried to drive as much awareness as I could. Why didn't you just shut it down? I mean, because some people
I
would have
tried,
done that.
right? But it was really getting negative. It was really becoming attacks on other channels. And that was, this is not the intent of the awards. It's really to celebrate the community and all of the good things that are happening. So when people were going through and saying, oh, well, that channel shouldn't have been nominated, well, that's your opinion, not my opinion, or maybe not the other 500 people that voted
for that channel. Yeah,
right. So so I'm certainly, it's a new awards, and I'm hoping that will continue every year. And so I said, all right, well, look, I made a mistake. I admitted, I could have cast a wider net. So I'm open to compromise, and I appreciate the feedback so that we can make it, bigger and better in year 2. That's really the goal.
Do you think that your adjustment and willingness to hear a different viewpoint and a different argument, have you had any additional conversations with those that had been vocal to say, yes, that they seem to be somewhat satisfied with the adjustment that you made? I'm just curious.
That, I haven't received much feedback. The one channel that was very vocal had basically, and they were nominated too, which was kind of strange, but they have kind of asked to be removed from the awards, which is fine. If they don't want to be involved, that's their right, up to them. But I haven't heard much feedback on, adding the People's Choice Award. We did have some conversation back and forth and just made sure that it wasn't a personal thing. Because I think there was some, people, thought maybe it was I was trying to exclude people on purpose, which wasn't the case. And I think the misconception was also that people didn't realize that it was based on nominations from the community. I think people thought I just picked 5 finalists in each category and posted it up on a website,
right?
Which wasn't the case.
Right. Very good. So I want to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions here. And I don't know if you're going to answer these. I don't know if you're going to disclose certain things, but I'm going to ask the question, right? All right. So the question 1, can you disclose, or are you willing to disclose, how many total people voted in the original nomination process?
I'll give you a rough number. So there was, 10 different categories, and you had to vote for, no, actually, you didn't have to vote for all 10. You could have left some blank. I didn't make that a requirement. But we had about under 400, but more than 350. So somewhere in the 370, 375, individual votes that were submitted. And most of them had, between 8 and 10. So votes. So you're looking at somewhere in the, 3,300 different votes.
Yep.
And that was the one piece that I think people didn't understand, was there were a number of channels that were nominated but didn't make the final cut.
Right.
So there were some channels that were mentioned that did receive votes, but they just didn't have enough votes to become a finalist.
So to that point, how many individual channels and or pages were actually nominated? Is there a total number of that to show the representation of coverage?
I didn't total that, but I can do that. I can go back. I have that data, and that was the data that the committee looked over, right? So I wanted to make sure this was, not my biased opinion on things, that I had a committee of people reviewing the data and agreeing on the nominations, the 5 finalists. Yep. But there were, like I said, there were a number of channels that didn't make the finalist list. But I will certainly go back. That's a great question and a good data point.
Because I think that would also help people, right? If people are like, hey, there were, and I'm making numbers up, like 400 channels that were nominated. Like, that's pretty broad. Like, I can tell you for a fact, I don't know of 400 channels between YouTube and Instagram. Like
Right, right.
so again, I think that that's a data point that I think could potentially help people. So the last like rapid fire, and this hasn't been rapid because I've been talking a
Yeah.
lot. Can you give us an update on the total number of people that have voted for the finalist? And I saw on Instagram you put up a post. I think the last count was 3,500 votes have been cast for the finalists. Where are we now, if you can disclose that?
We're around last check around 3,700.
Okay, good. So we're headed down a good path, right? So
Oh yeah.
the other question is, if people haven't yet voted, because I think you can only vote one time. If people haven't yet voted, where can people actually cast their ballot, if you will?
So yeah, voting for finalists is currently open in the 10 categories, and then nominations are still open for the People's Choice. And it's at the website, it's cbcawards.org.
And I probably should have shown that on screen instead of just asking you to remember. So here we go. That is it right there.
Yep.
Comic Book Community Awards. Welcome to the first annual Comic Book Community Awards. And you have your nominations right there. And then you can vote for the individuals. And I think at present, you've been releasing like a post a day almost of the individual categories to kind of, I guess, flag for people who is a finalist for the individual categories. Am I seeing that correctly? That is basically
correctly.
Yeah,
that's correct. I'm every day. I just started this week, just highlighting the finalists in each category again, and reminding people to please vote.
Yep. And let me ask you this. You received a lot of comments, and I saw a comment from I think it was Squirrel Madness. I think Squirrel Madness made the comment about this. This is your first year, right? This is the first time that you've done it. We had some learning lessons, maybe some growing pains. You've made some adjustments. Do you think that you're going to do this again next year, or have you had enough after one rotation?
No, I'm in it for the long term. I definitely want to make it better. Once we're done with the awards this year, and that was part of the problem. I think this year was I really started to come up with the idea in early June and did my reach out. And then I was like, well, I want to get them in before the end of the year. And so there was a little bit of a time crunch because I had started late. But the goal for next year would be then, the announcement, or the winners will be announced in early December 4th. And then really January 2022, we're going to start, collecting feedback, what people liked, what they didn't like, what, I want to get a committee together or just solicit feedback from the community and kind of, start to, brainstorm all of that information, go through it. And then, at some point early in the spring, we'll announce the next year's, awards, and hopefully, we'll make some adjustments to, the community and their feedback.
There we go. Super helpful. And if I heard you correctly, you'll be announcing the winners on December 4th. Did I hear that correct?
Yes. December 4th, we're going to do a live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll announce all of the 11 winners. We're going to have some guests, and, we're putting together some prize packages for each of the winners. So I want to make it a real, fun event. Giveaway, we're going to get trophies. I haven't unveiled the trophies yet. I'm still working on those. So, there'll be a little, if you're a winner, there'll be something you can hang up in the trophy room if you'd like. If
Yep.
you don't, then, maybe I'll have a shelf in my own house where I can put the ones that people don't want.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm hopeful that everybody who is a finalist, and eventually the 11 winners are excited for it.
Very good. And then I was going to ask you another question, and it got away from me. I was so busy laughing at your joke there about the unclaimed awards. Where can people find you online, right? Because you have a profile set up for the awards, but then you have a personal profile. If people wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do so on the social media?
So I have like you said, I do have an Instagram for the awards. So that's you can find that at cbcawards.org is the links to the to that Instagram, and then I have my own channel Instagram. But I didn't want to split up. I didn't want to manage two channels on YouTube, so it's really on my own channel where I'm providing updates. And there's a couple videos already, with the updates, the announcement of the finalist, and some updates for the People's Choice. And there'll be more updates as we move along until we get to the show in December. But my channel name is LCS. What I found out after I started my channel was that was probably not a very good name, because it's a little bit difficult to find when you search on YouTube. But it is what it is. That's where we are, and that's where I provide updates. But Instagram is really where I'm providing daily little tidbits of information or updates.
There we go. So if people do want to vote, because I just saw someone ask the question again, it is CBCA Awards.org. And for those folks that are coming in a little bit late, we are speaking with Brian, who is the organizer behind the Comic Book Community Awards. And we spent a little bit of time talking about what the awards are, some of what's transpired over the last, few weeks, and where we are headed right now. And I also want to be super transparent about this. You also have some sponsors, right? You have some sponsors that are helping you to put together these prize packs. Do you want to acknowledge the sponsors before I talk about the thing that I want to be transparent about?
Sure. Yeah. So Cover Price and my comic shop have they're donating some prizes towards each of the prize packs. So each of the 11 winners will receive a prize pack and a trophy. So and we will have some artwork and some comic books and some some freebies, some subscriptions and things like that that'll be included in that prize pack.
The other thing that the winners will get will be a Comics to Go box from me as well. And I purposefully, Brian, have not sent those to you because I wanted to do this show, and I wanted to tell people that I'm not buying votes. I'm not buying the judges. I am simply volunteering some things that I have to a good cause, the same way I've volunteered and donated other things, right? So that box literally was put in the mail today. It was put in the mail this evening. I cannot remember how many I sent you. Shout out to my buddy Milt, because Milt sent me an AOK. And I repurposed his Target box to send you the Comics to Go. So whatever fit that box, that's what went in there. And hopefully it's enough. If it's not, I'll find another box from Milt and send those out to you. So.
Okay, great. Now I appreciate that. And that, and I think the other thing that people need to realize is that, I'm doing this all, for the most part by myself. And trying to run a channel, and I have a day job and a family and all those things too. So there's been out of pocket expense, right? I've received a few donations, some comic books and things for the prize packs, and thank you for your your box that will I'll pack everything up and send off to the winners. But the website cost me money and things like that. So it's really just a way for me, and I'm not complaining about it. It's a way for me to give back to the community. And so I'm happy to do it. But there's no big corporation behind me, and no, I had to reach out to each of the sponsors. I had to explain to them, do my, 2-minute elevator pitch with them. They were, I'm grateful to have, Cover Price and my comic shop on board. They thought it was a great idea. They are, they wanted to recognize the community on YouTube as well. So I'm glad, I'm glad that worked out.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate you taking the time as I try to find my mouse here, taking the time to chat with me this evening. I enjoy our offline conversations, even though we don't talk a ton. I enjoy that. I know you come by my live streams, and I appreciate you being part of my little community around the channel. And I want to applaud you for having the idea, the initiative, and the stick-to-itiveness to actually get this thing done. And again, I'm not saying that just because I plan to win all 5 categories. It would be nice if that were to happen. But in all sincerity, good luck with everything. I cannot wait to see where this goes in the future. I think that it's a really good idea. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Reggie. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And it sounds like I might be sending that box back to you in in December. So
well, maybe.
we'll
Trust
see.
me.
We'll see.
I have a ton of copies, brother. So
Yeah.
you know, you don't need to send those comics to go back. You can keep one. So anyway, thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Reggie.
All right. So again, shout out to again Doug or Milt that gave me the idea to not just talk about the awards, but to dig into some of the controversy. I hope that you guys enjoyed that discussion with Brian. I know that I did. I learned a little bit about him, stuff that I did not know. Like, you know, when he reaches out to me, I'll answer a question here or there, but I honestly did not know some of his background. So I enjoyed that part of the conversation with him. And now I want to make a little bit of a transition to talk about the title item that is on the thumbnail. There has been a massive theft of a comic book collection, a massive theft of a comic book collection from an institution of higher learning. So let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. Let me see if I can find the right window so that I can share this with you. And I want to give a shout out. Who was it that alerted me to this? See if I can find it. It was Angel. Angel Cruz is the person that alerted me to this earlier today. FSU confirms theft of nearly 5,000 rare comics science fiction digest from the library on the FSU campus. And it says the collection included Marvel Comics, DC Comics titles from the 1950s through the 1970s. And this was an article that actually came out 2 days ago. 2 days ago in the Tallahassee Democrat, this thing dropped, and it says the Florida State University's libraries has a real whodunit on its hands. Sometime between March 17th and February 10th, someone stole nearly 5,000 items from the archives at the university, and the university confirmed this on Friday. It says in all 4,996 items are missing from the collection that consists of comic books and serials on superheroes, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, the university said in an email to the newspaper. Over 1,200 titles were represented from the 1950s through the 1970s, including Marvel, DC, underground publishers, foreign language titles, and also pulp magazines. And they actually give us not just this short list, they actually give us a full list of all of the items that were actually stolen, and I'll show that in a hot second. But this collection was actually donated. It was donated by the parents of a guy with his blessing. They actually made this donation back in the day, and it's actually been at the university for quite some time, for like 40 years or something like that. And it says that missing items may have appeared on the secondary market as early as March 2020. The pieces are not likely to include any FSU identification, and the university said photos were not available, which is going to make recovery very, very difficult because there's no markings. These books were not graded. I think that these were all raw comics that were basically in 50 containers. And I don't know if these things were smuggled out one container at a time, but this is a pretty big theft, I do believe. And of course, they are eager to try to recover as many of these collectibles as they possibly can. Of note, probably the biggest books as I scanned the list, and I did so really quickly as I scanned the list, there was a copy of Incredible Hulk issue number 180 and also 181. Those were probably some of the bigger books on the list. There were low number Avenger books, low number Fantastic Four books on here, but this list is 101 pages. It is a long inventory of comics and pulps and things like that, including Action Comics, as you can see there on the screen. But I just wanted to kind of share this information with you. I thought it was interesting when it was brought to my attention because I have not heard much about this theft. There are a lot that you do hear about when a comic shop is hit or a storage unit is hit. Oftentimes on Instagram, you see lots and lots of posts of people sharing some of this information. I haven't necessarily seen that with this particular thing, and I don't know if it's because the theft occurred so long ago and is just now being discovered. At least that's my feeling, that it's just now being discovered. But it's, you know, it's 5,000 comics that are out there that belong to this university that have now been taken. So there were goals in age in there as well. These would be easier to track. I think because it started in the 50s, there are some books in there. Again, you know, it's tough. It's tough. Depends upon who stole them, whether they want to keep some of them or not. But it's definitely a crazy situation. So short of someone trying to unload bulk, making it obvious, it is going to be difficult. And to the point, there may be some ways to find some of these books. You know, if there are, you know, a handful of these golden age books out there, that could be a way. But again, it's been a while since these things were taken. They may have already handed a lot of this stuff off. It's really hard to know. It's really hard to know. So let me scroll through some of the comments here. A lot of people saying that it's crazy. They have a complete list. Yep, I did show the complete list. I think I showed that a little bit later than the comment. Rush says it looks like an inside job. Again, if they stole these things over time, yeah, it's crazy. Let me see scrolling through some of the comments, and no, they were not graded. They were all raw books, is my impression. And there was actually a quote here from the kid, if you will, that is now an adult. Let me see. So it says here, let me see. I'm trying to find it. So the guy right now is 68, and he said the collection was accumulated during his preteen and teenage years, then donated to FSU by his parents with his permission after he moved away from home. I do not know the value, other than I imagine it is a good deal more than it was when it was gifted to FSU almost 40 years ago. However, the true value is the research value, which is unestimatable. So again, just the interesting quote there from the guy who is now in his 70s, who had his childhood collection donated to the university, now realizing that collection has actually been stolen. It's a very interesting situation. And to someone's point, it could have been an inside job. You just never know. And we've spoken about this before. Anytime money is involved, there will be some bad actors, and it is a shame that this has happened. But what's interesting though is the longer that I've been in comics, the more that I've heard about these wonderful collections that exist at institutions. I think Michigan State actually has an amazing comic book collection as well. That's the one that most readily comes to mind. But I've heard other universities have these amazing collections of comics as well. In the case of FSU, they actually did not have the comics on display or anything like that. I guess they may have been stored away in the archive in these totes or containers or whatever. And maybe someone either took the containers out individually or took the books out of the containers over a period of time. Hard to know, but fingers crossed that they are able to recover some of these books. So scrolling through the comments here, John says they more than likely went out of state to sell as well. LCSs would have been suspicious about them being sold, but many pawn shops might not care. Well said on that, brother. Scrolling through some of the comments here, making sure that I am all caught up. And indeed I am. All right. So again, just a relatively short show. Wanted to spend time talking about, again, this theft of comics, 5,000 really awesome comics stolen down in Florida, but then also talk to Brian about the Comic Book Community Awards. So certainly if you all have not voted, I definitely want to encourage you to let your voice be heard. I think Brian said that right now they are at around 3,700 votes. So I definitely want to encourage you guys to go vote for your favorite YouTuber and or Instagrammer that is putting out some really awesome content. If you happen to vote for me, thank you. It would be cool to win, but it will be what it is in the end. All right. With that said, we are going to wrap this video up, or this live stream up. I want to remind you guys that I do have another video that is going to be coming out tomorrow at at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. It'll be a TV show, movie haul type of thing. So that'll be going down. And then the podcast was also released. And I just realized this moment that I did not declare the winner for the ShortBoxed $100 credit. I actually forgot to run the name search thing that I normally do. So I may go live again here in a moment after I run that to declare who the winner is. My apologies for everyone who tuned in to see who the winner will be, but I may go live here again real quick to declare that. But anyway, if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.